Yes.
Let me tell you, the enactment of the Privatization Act by the National Assembly, or the unanimous endorsement, was the direct usurpation of the sovereign power donated by the people. You see, the Constitution was designed in a way that the powers that both the executive, the judiciary, and the parliament or the legislature acts upon is in trust of the people. It is the people first. Article 1.1 of the 2010 Constitution stipulates that the sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya. In so saying, they have the privilege of exercising it directly or indirectly within the constitutional framework. So, by Parliament endorsing this act, they ought to have determined, Parliament should act like a court of law.
Yes.
When you are brought before a court of law, the juries will always determine or try to determine the intention.
Yes.
What was the intention of President pushing for the privatization and absolving Parliament of the powers to grant them a no or yes? That was usurpation of the people's power. Number two, that begs the question of whom do we elect to these houses? Do they really understand the fundamental responsibilities that are bestowed upon them by them contesting and declaring to become members of parliament? A member of parliament have very categorical constitutional responsibilities: oversight, legislation, and the third one is what?
Oversight, representation.
And legislation. So, in this parliamentary endorsement of the Privatization Act, did they actually represent the people's interest? No. The strategic importance of monumental buildings like the KICC, by Parliament agreeing, or MPs in majority agreeing to the sale proposal, that arrogates absolute power to both the executive and the parliament, as opposed to what it should be. They are operating on donated power from the people.
Yes.
So I've brought in a concept of the integrity question. Number three, these MPs would not have stood their ground to confront Dr. William Ruto and his unconstitutional suggestion, because you cannot throw stones while you are living in a glass house. Most of these people are rotten to the core. They have scandals stretching all the way from River Limpopo to the Nile.
Yes.
They cannot question the law. Because
Sankara, you say that. Let me take you back to June 14th, when these guys were voting for this particular bill. Let me just give you the details. Out of the 257 members of parliament who were present in the House that day, 176 voted in favor of the bill. No legislator, even one, abstained from the vote. 92 parliamentarians, however, were absent during the vote. That if you look at the way they voted, it's like, well, if 176 voted in favor of the bill, it's like majority of them in that house essentially supported it. Even some of them, by the way, from the opposing side of the government.
yes, we understand that was expected, because once William Ruto, the president, assumed office, one of the key activities he embarked on is to interfere with the opposition.
Yes.
Poaching opposition MPs and still, purporting to be expecting a vibrant opposition to pull the checks and balance ball games against him.
This sense that Raila Amolo Odinga is giving us now is rushed to court immediately. Why couldn't we see him rush to court immediately this past? Sankara, to the point that now it appears it's a bit too late, because it's now an act, and the process of repealing an act is as tedious as it can be, Sankara.
That is a direct confirmation of the betrayal of the people of Kenya by both the executive, the legislature, and the opposition. In a moment, the opposition goes to bed with the government. Whether there was a process of dialogue and conversation, the rule of law must always be respected. I do say that the Constitution was constitutionally constituted to constitute a constituent of constitutionalism.
Yes.
Pedal 1, the rule of law. Pedal 2, the rule of law. Pedal 3, the rule of law. In as much as we may sit together to have a conversation, constructive, progressive, and meaningful conversation,
Yes.
the rule of law must not be an afterthought. The Constitution is not a creative convenience. And if the opposition had the zeal and zest that an opposition that represents the people ought to be having, they would have done wonders during that particular voting.
That's it.
By over 90 MPs abstaining from parliament during a legislative process, you start to ask yourself, do we really have a country, or do we really have a parliament? And that's why personally I would tell you, when I was very young, I'm still young, but when I was very young, I used to walk far distance to go and watch the parliament, the 10th parliament
Yes.
session,
Yes.
led by the former speaker, Kenneth Marende. That was the parliament where the rule of law was what it ought to be.
Yes.
Discussions in parliament were pragmatic. They were sagacious. It was a needed conversation where things would not have been passed. And today William Ruto summons MPs from State House. Si wewe uko na scandal ya edible oil, enda upinge hiyo bill, tutakutana wewe. Si wewe uko na scandal ya nini pale uliiba pesa ya CDF, nikuone. You see, when the president came loud and told MPs that go against that finance bill and
Yes.
you will see,
Yes.
he knew what he was saying.
That's it.
How do you say, birds of a feather, they flock together. He knew these people.
Sankara, I'm going to come back to